am thrilled to welcome our moderator to the stage, and then she's going to bring up her panelist. But this is the incomparable Lady Phyll. Lady Phyll is the CEO of UK Pride, and she's also just one of the most amazing humans out there. And she had the pleasure of telling me, well, you know, I've got to jet off tonight, darling, for Barcelona. And I was like, oh, what a tough life. What a tough life, Lady Phyll. So please give a round of applause, and we'll welcome up our other panelists.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, she's making me sound really posh. Yeah, you know, there are black people in the UK. We're all from Bridgerton, by the way. So, okay, I am going to welcome my amazing guests. Sharon's already highlighted what the panel's about. So please welcome to the stage Asha, Shivaji, and Aïda, Moudachirou-Rebois. I wanted to make sure I knew that off by heart.
I know, sorry.
So,
Long name.
Asha, the amazing, beautiful woman in the red dress. She is from SeeMe Index, using responsible AI and data to measure how brands historically have excluded different communities. And Aïda, to my left here, gorgeous M.A.C. I've got to say that because I'm waiting for new eyelashes from M.A.C. She's the SVP and the General Manager at M.A.C Cosmetics, a strategic leader who has been championing inclusive beauty across borders. Now, I am looking forward to this conversation because there's something about the 40 years that M.A.C has been developing, branding, and really speaking truth to power when it comes to inclusivity, when it comes to belonging. So let's dive straight in. And I think my question has to be for Asha first. Can you tell us a bit more about why SeeMe and what has inspired you to do the SeeMe Index? And was there a professional or a personal element to this?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me today. So at SeeMe Index, we're using responsible AI to measure how inclusive brands are. And by doing that, we're measuring their ads, their product, and their purpose to see consistency across 7 different identity dimensions. We decided to launch SeeMe Index because professionally, we saw so many brands struggling with what inclusion looks like. And were they winning the hearts and minds of consumers? And we didn't want inclusive marketing or being an inclusive brand to be the roadblock for people connecting with different audiences and showing audiences that their brand was for them. But personally, this company was sparked because of my journey. I grew up in Minnesota in the 80s. There were not many kids of color at the time. And I really searched. I searched in media and advertising, books, anything for someone that looked like me. And I never saw it. And as I started my career in beauty before getting into tech, I felt the same thing. We'd often put diverse talent in ads, but there wasn't a shade I could wear on a brand. Or we would have a product, but then the people the product was for weren't featured in the ads. And I knew brands were well-intentioned, but they were just falling short. So we brought SeeMe Index to life.
Beautiful, thank you. And Aïda, I guess the story, I would like to know a bit more of a personal story behind, you know, what does this look like in terms of inclusive practices? Is there something personal to you that has stood out in working for M.A.C?
Yeah, no, obviously, it's always personal. And I think for me, M.A.C Cosmetic is a good fit because it's a brand I've been with M.A.C for 4 years. I was the global CMO and I took over the helm of the brand a year ago. But I've been using M.A.C for 25 years because that was the only brand I could use. And I remember when I was, you know, I'm married to a French guy and we were getting married in the south of France, not too far from here where we grew up. And I was living in Paris at the time, and it was almost 20 years ago, trying to get my makeup look together. Today, like, it's a full operation, right? You bring makeup artists, but back then, get your look, and then you go get married and reproduce it. But I was in the counter, I was in a French department store called Galeries Lafayette in Paris. And, you know, I went from counter to counter, trying to kind of find somebody who will help me with my makeup look. And everybody was very excited for me, but they're like, oh, so sorry, but we don't have a shade for you. So I went from counter to counter, and after maybe 4 counters, I was so discouraged because what was supposed to be a super exciting opportunity, occasion, whatever, call it, became just in my face, a slap of me not being seen, not being taken into consideration, by major beauty brands. And I was about to leave when I was with one brand, and the beauty assistant told me, well, we don't have anything for you, but you should go and check that brand out, which is M.A.C Cosmetics. And I went, discovered the brand, sat on the chair. A makeup artist took the time to kind of calm me down by, just asking the right questions. And I walk away with a bag full of M.A.C products. That day I never looked back. I've been doing this for 20-something years, working for other brands I couldn't use because they didn't have my shades. And as a marketer at heart, I've been observing M.A.C and all their successes based on charting their own path, which was not what anybody else would have found business sound at the time. Launching foundation with 40 shades 40 years ago. Can you imagine? And today we have 78 shades. So yes, M.A.C is everything that I think a brand should be doing, at least for me as a woman and as a woman of color, super important brand. So yes, it is personal, and it's my privilege to lead this brand today.
Oh, I love that. And you're allowed to clap, This is, don't stay silent. I haven't come all the way here for you guys to be shy. This is a beautiful space that has been curated by Sharon, and I've got 2 powerhouses on this stage. It doesn't matter whether we're speaking to 2 people or 200 people. This is gems of nuggets that you're going to hear from these 2 amazing women.
Thank you.
I definitely hear you about the shades. I would like to say I don't wear makeup, but of course I wear M.A.C. Wearing my nude palette today. But I think that there is something about, and if you haven't noticed, this is 3 women of colour who are on a platform here in Cannes when we're talking about brands and we're talking about the data of where we've not historically seen ourselves. The fact that we're here speaking to this is great. So, Aïcha, let me come back to you as M.A.C as a certified brand. Yeah. What does it take to earn a title like this? And what has M.A.C done across the product and the culture and the leadership that makes it really stand out?
Absolutely. So for context for everyone, certified inclusive brands are the top brands on our index for the beauty industry that we see really just excelling in their inclusion efforts. And M.A.C has been one of our certified inclusive brands both years we've run the index, and it's not an easy feat. Consumer expectations are constantly changing, there's different demands, and there's a lot of competition. So it's really a testament to the efforts. But what we see with M.A.C that really makes them stand out is first their long-term commitment. So M.A.C has been committed to inclusion since day one. It's part of their brand ethos and their DNA. And to Aïda's point, it's very personal. It's something that they go to market with, and it touches everything that they do. But to that point too, what we see is this insane level of consistency, and that's where many other brands fall short. What M.A.C does really well is showing up for communities, and oftentimes communities that are not represented in the beauty industry or many industries in a very big way. So for example, for the trans and gender nonconforming community, M.A.C puts people from those groups in their ads 4.5 times more than any other beauty brand in the industry. They have that consistency through their website where there's images of different people from those groups on different product pages. And then with Viva Glam, they partner with Kim Petras, a very popular trans musician. So you see this consistency of how they support the community and how they're showing up as a brand.
And you mentioned the LGBT plus community, and that, for anyone that doesn't know, is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. And as somebody who's an open out lesbian woman and working with many influencers and creators from our trans and gender non-conforming, it's really good to hear that, M.A.C is centering those voices and giving them agency. So I guess, Aïda, if I can sort of, highlight as Aïcha, I keep on calling you Aïcha because my good friend's Aïcha. Asha.
Aïcha, Aïda, Asha.
Yeah.
It's like very similar.
We'll both
Look at
respond.
them trying to be nice to me. They're trying to be nice to me because I've just made a mistake, but it's okay. I was testing them to see if they were both awake. Absolutely are. So, let me ask you, in terms of M.A.C, how do you ensure underrepresented voices and leading on that from the LGBT plus communities are elevated through your campaigns?
It's a really good question. But before I get on to the question, I just wanted to say thank you to Asha and Jason here from the SeeMe Index, because I think, for us, it's part of our purpose. It's part of our DNA. That's the way the brand was founded. That's the way we go to market. That's how we roll. But what I love about what the work that Asha and the SeeMe Index and Jason and the team are doing is they're putting data at the center of the conversation to really help measure our own progress. Because, obviously, we are doing things as we feel, but it's always good to see how much more engaging or inclusive we can be. I'll just say, before I get back to the LGBTQI plus community, M.A.C is presented, we are present on 90 plus territories. So it's easy for a brand like us to actually shy away from this kind of conversation, because if you are in the Middle East or if you're in China, the conversation is not quite the same as if you are in the US, but it doesn't matter. What I always tell people is M.A.C was founded by 2 gay men, right? When they founded the brand, they were intentional about the community they wanted to build around the brand. And when the crisis of HIV/AIDS hit in the 90s, they started the Viva Glam Fund in 1994, which was 31 years ago, to fight against HIV/AIDS and fund and support communities and people living with HIV/AIDS. In 1994, nobody was talking about AIDS. I remember when Freddie Mercury passed away, asking my parents, what did he die for? My mom is a doctor. She kind of nixed the conversation because it was taboo. But then they did not care. They launched a lipstick and gave 100% of their selling price back to the fund to fight against HIV/AIDS. 31 years later, here we are. We've raised $535 million for the cause of Viva Glam, to support, equality, starting with the LGBTQI plus community, but also gender equality, racial equality, because it's important to us. So what do? We started in 1994. We started way before that, but in 1994, for the first campaign ever that M.A.C ran, we casted RuPaul, a black drag queen, in 1994. Obviously, people were shocked. Retailers wanted to understand why we were doing this. Our, brand leaders at the time said, it's M.A.C. You take it or you leave it. If you don't want to put RuPaul in the windows, you don't get the brand. So we were always very clear about our values being non-negotiable. You take M.A.C, you take us with all what comes with M.A.C, and because we felt the duty to be a platform for those voices to be seen and to kind of, unlock those conversations that were somehow taboos. Today, fast forward, almost 41 years of existence, we still support. We support hundreds of organizations and NGOs around the world, that's, fight for equalities, and I'm thinking about Mermaid in the UK, Rainbow in Canada, we have the Trevor Project in America. These are organizations that are very grassroots. There's many in Brazil, in South Africa, all over the world. And this is what the brand is about. We start with our values, and then our community follows and support with our business.
I love that you've both really highlighted the importance of supporting underrepresented communities, and also not mermaids, M.A.C has supported UK Black Pride in its earlier days.
Yeah.
And I think it was very meaningful and intentional about how it went about doing that. It understood the power and the privilege and the dynamics of the resource that it had, but it also understood that the USP of People, which is about the lifelines, is about highlighting real case studies and real stories about where we see ourselves, what we look like in media, what we look like on TV, you know, how we sound. It has been so positive and almost transformative and transformational to feel that M.A.C has been at the forefront of doing that. And this isn't about just blowing smoke up M.A.C. It's about seeing brands for what they are and for those that speak truth to power and put their head above the parapet when others are not doing it, based on data that has been found, based on, you know, M.A.C having amazing people at the helm really saying, this is what we're going to change and we're going to do it, and it's non-negotiable. So thank you, you know, both for really being part of changing the movement, not just for that moment, but a continuous cycle of change. And I guess, given, I did want to ask you a question about the current climate. I know that many people have stayed away from talking about it, but we can't help but to think there's such a rollback on so many things. We've seen DEI, you know, being attacked in ways that doesn't allow some organisations and brands to do the very necessary and meaningful work. What does it mean for you in your work of, you know, affirming your commitment to this work that speaks its truth to power to many underrepresented groups?
Do you want to start, Asha?
And I want to ask both of you, so please, Asha.
Well, I think what's really interesting is right now brands have this huge opportunity to drive trust with consumers. Yesterday in the Palais, Edelman launched their new trust barometer, and people are trusting brands more than any other organization today. So the work that M.A.C's doing, showing up for communities, has never been more important, and what consumers are looking for. But what we've been pushing at SeeMe Index is to take a look at the business impact of inclusion. And when you're thinking about inclusive marketing, it's really a business driver. In our index, we see that more inclusive beauty brands grow 2.7 times faster than their less inclusive counterparts. And we see more inclusive advertising drive short-term sales by 3% and long-term sales by 16%. So it's just good for the bottom line, period. But it's also a world where markets are getting more diverse. If we look at the US today, 48% of Gen Z consider themselves a person of color. 1 in 4 have a disability. 1 in 6 are from the LGBTQ+ community. If you're not showing up for these different consumers and the breadth of their identities, you're not connecting with them, and that's just a fundamental of marketing. So we keep trying to emphasize those points when naysayers try and push back on DEI.
Yeah, I think this is well said. I think for me personally, but also for the brand, M.A.C is about self-expression, limitless self-expression. So this is the ultimate expression of individuality. And there is no way we can do that if we don't take into consideration every single individual, regardless of their ages, their races, their genders, where they live. We have 12,000 makeup artists at M.A.C. They are with our consumer every single day. They know what the consumer wants. They know what the consumer needs. So even beyond the fact that we're like, okay, we have 78 shades, we do this, we do that, they keep us honest on, you know, out of 78 shades, you're missing this undertone. So we're working also across many regions. So, you know, our makeup artists in India will tell us, you know, for the Indian undertone, you need more yellow. In Brazil, they will tell us something different. So we bring all this intel together to be able to serve our consumers and to make the brand, you know, really resonate with everybody and in the most individual way. So it's part of who we are. It doesn't matter the context, I would say, because we never looked at the context. We looked at our communities, and our communities are diverse. They are engaged. They are really interested in expressing every single part of their personalities. And they use M.A.C as a toolbox to achieve that. So, you know, we just need to keep the toolbox growing. It doesn't matter whatever, you know, if DE&I is popular today or not popular today, we've been doing this for 41 years. We're not going to stop now.
I love that. You know, just hearing about affirming the commitment, reaffirming the commitment, you know, regardless of the political landscape or current stage that we're at. And I hope that a lot of other brands are listening to what you're saying and what you're doing, and they follow suit, rather than things becoming performative and jumping in only when it's Pride season and then jumping back out. So, yeah. So I know we have a hard stop, but I am going to ask this last question. So I think I will start with you, Aïda. Let's talk about the future and vision of unfinished business. So the legacy in the next chapter, what does the next M.A.C inclusion journey look like, and what excites you about the change that is still to come for the wider beauty industry?
I think what excites me most is to continue to lead the conversation when it comes to inclusivity. You know, I think, you know, we talk a lot, I talked a lot about our product, but I think at the core of what we do, there's the casting of M.A.C, the casting of our employees, the casting of the people in our campaigns. We just had an amazing moment in January with the I Only Wear M.A.C campaign, which was, you know, really, you know, putting at the forefront what we call outspoken talents. So these are people who have great personalities. Obviously, they're all ages, all races, all genders. We had people like Martha Stewart or Tiffany Pollard, who came from a reality TV show, but is a very engaged audience, to Julia Fox, more of a fashion icon, Odell Beckham Jr., Biba Doobie. You know, this was truly a representation of M.A.C, but what we love about this casting is what they're bringing to the table. We could use them and use their unfiltered selves, and they're very comfortable to do that in front of the camera. Guess what? The campaign was extremely successful. I think everywhere in the world, you know, we got huge coverage, people shared the campaign and everything. It means that when you mix your values with the culture, and you stay, you know, relevant in the people, what people want to hear, what they want to see, and they want to see themselves represented. The amount of people who reach out to me, my parents' friends, who don't even know what I'm doing, but they're like, oh, Martha Stewart, how old is she? I'm like, yeah, well, she's 82. You know, people are just excited to see themselves represented. So I hope, you know, my wish and what we do day in and day out is to continue to marry what this campaign is for the future and for our futures, you know, the campaigns, but also for the community to continue to see themselves represented and supported through what we do. And obviously, you know, it's also about, you know, continue to give back through Viva Glam. You know, we have Kim Petras right now fronting the Viva Glam campaign. We have pledged for another $500 million to be raised through Viva Glam to reach $1 billion, you know, to give back to our communities in the next 30 years. So we are serious about continuing to support people and the voices. And for me, I'm very, you know, excited to see that work continue.
I love that. Well, just a shameless plug. I'm looking forward to Glow Up when it comes back in the UK, and getting more products and creating more content. So thank you for that. And Asha, let me just ask you, where to start? So if you could give us a practical step on how to take tomorrow forward, what would you say about meaningful inclusion beyond surface level?
Absolutely. So I think the first step is really understanding where you are today as a brand. So start measuring, and then decide who that group is that you want to connect with, and make that a priority across every single touch point that the brand has. I think so often, as I mentioned, brands fall short by not showing up across all those brand touch points. So once you ingrain it into the organization and don't make it this additional sort of checkbox exercise that another team handles, and you're really thinking about that consumer group through how you bring your brand to life, that's the best way to get started.
Oh my gosh, I could listen to you two forever. And I do know that you have to shoot off, but I really wanted to thank you as powerhouses, as leading women, as leading change. This is not just about business strategy, this is about real lives. You've mentioned representation, visibility, you've mentioned about meaningful and intentional change, the data which really supports and helps us take a trajectory of where we want to go, that we stay relevant. So everything you've said so powerful for this salon conversations, and it's about the culture. So long may M.A.C continue to keep the culture relevant and to keep on affirming its position. So on that note, I really want to thank Sharon Harris, Amy, the team for putting on this amazing conversation, and also the audience here. But thank you to Asha and Aïda for doing what you do. Thank you. Please give them a round of applause.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.